Hello everyone, and a special welcome to all my new subscribers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm finally back with another review of Quantum Leap 2022. First off, allow me to apologize for the delay in this review. I got caught up with launching my debut science fiction novel Holocene. I recently joined UK Dangerman for a bladder-torturing 3.5-hour live stream all about Star Trek. And I lost a decade-long battle to keep a dog out of my house, and now there's a puppy that demands way too much of my time and wrecks my house and makes it smell funny and ruins my yard and... What am I even doing again? Oh right, my YouTube side hustle. Okay. This episode is episode 6, What a Disaster, which is definitely a title more fitting for the previous episode. And because of that abysmal aforementioned episode 5, I went into this one with low expectations. Prior to me rewatching the episode for the purpose of reviewing, I was informed via comment by channel viewer JB followed by 9/8, you couldn't have done 8/8, that this episode was supposed to be the original pilot for the Quantum Leap revival. Not believing just any schmo on the internet regardless of how many 8s are in their name, I looked it up and lo and behold this was indeed the case. So now I'm rewatching with this in mind. This episode opens with the last 22 seconds of episode 5, which as you may recall were the only 22 seconds I recommended you watch. We see a mysterious cowboy approach Ben and call him his real name, threaten him, and then Ben leaps out before he can react. We then cut back to 2022 where the team is trying to make sense of what they all just witnessed. Ian comes to the conclusion that the other man must be another time traveler. Everyone seems incredulous at the notion, but I'd like to point out that in the original series, Sam encountered other leapers, some of whom mysteriously appeared to be dead and leaping as themselves, like Stoppa and Angelita, and of course Aaliyah, who came with her own libidinous hologram. Now perhaps the information about the other leapers is classified and only Magic knows, so I'll give them that, but everyone knows that Sam was lost and is somewhere in time, so there's at least one other leaper out there for sure. But the next line out of Ian's mouth really picks at the open wound, which is the horrible decision that was made to change established canon and have Ben merely occupying the body of the person he leaps into. Ian says,
"If they're using technology that's similar to ours, then they would see Ben as Ben."
What? That doesn't make any sense. If Ben is merely occupying the bodies of the people he leaps into, there's no way for anyone to see Ben. Ever. In fact, Addison and the rest of the team should only see the person that Ben has leaped into. Now perhaps Ziggy deepfakes Ben into the visuals they see in the imaging chamber, but even if someone else had time travel tech, how would they know to replace Ben's host image with Ben? And how does another time traveler in 1879 see Ben as Ben instead of Diego de la Cruz? In the original series, Sam only saw Aaliyah as her host once they touched, at which point the illusion collapsed for them and they, and their holograms, saw their true selves. What they're doing in the 2022 revival doesn't make sense and it's driving me nuts. I realize there were issues with the idea of Sam being physically back in time. Tons of them. But this change introduces just as many new logical problems, so it wasn't a good return on investment. Just have Ben physically back in time like Sam was, bring back the waiting room, and fix this major plot hole. Security woman Jen points out that Project Quantum Leap is a one-of-a-kind setup, so nobody else could be using similar technology. But what about the original project headquarters in New Mexico? Or whatever Janice was doing here? Addison and Jen start freaking out and asking questions nobody can answer, so the show decides it's time to reveal where Ben leaped into. Ben now occupies the body of a man named John Harvey, and he's in 1989 in a San Francisco bar being talked to by John's wife Naomi, played by Canadian actress Jewel State of Serenity fame, about her wanting a divorce. Ben sees a baseball game that his Swiss cheese brain remembers will be cancelled due to the major earthquake that happened in '89 and tries to warn her. She hilariously misunderstands everything he says, but sure enough the camera starts shaking and things start falling over. Ben and Naomi get to the street amongst all the panicking people and narrowly avoid getting killed by falling debris. This scene is actually pretty well done, like someone had some money to spend here. I guess it makes sense in the context of this being the original pilot. Once the quake subsides, Naomi wants to know how Ben knew the quake was going to happen, but is interrupted by an injured person whom Naomi attends to, revealing that she is a doctor. Addison shows up and talks about the other leaper with Ben, who doesn't understand how there could be another leaper, despite him being told about Sam in the first episode. Addison tells him that he can't think about the other leaper because he has to deal with his current leap. She tells him that if he doesn't get through the leap, he'll be stuck in the past, and again, there's no actual explanation for why that rule exists in this series. They say it like it's a given, but whatever. Addison's Amazon Echo Dot-looking hand link starts malfunctioning, which requires her to get an older model from Ian, which was because they filmed this as the pilot with a different hand link prompt and wanted to reuse as much footage as possible. The older model has subtle sound effects similar to the original series hand link and actually looks more sensical. So the gist of this episode. It's the Great San Francisco Quake of '89. Ben is trying to find John and Naomi's son Jason, who is missing after the quake. The family situation of the Harveys has Ben wondering about the fate of his parents, and Addison tells him his parents are both dead, but that he only had a relationship with his mother until she died when he was in high school. This triggers a few fragmented memories of Ben's mother, and he's forced to relive her loss along with the grief that came with it. Naomi and Ben realize that Jason has found out about the pending divorce and has run off in frustration. Ben deduces that Jason is trying to return to their previous home in Oakland, and they head off on foot. During the walk, Naomi talks about the life decisions that have led to this point in their marriage, and it triggers more memories of Ben's mother, and he realizes he has a lot in common with Jason. Ben rescues people trapped in a car by downed power lines, but in the process, Naomi gets electrocuted. While trying to revive her, Ben suddenly remembers that he found his mother's body when he was a teen and breaks down. Since Ben doesn't know or remember CPR, Addison provides a holographic path for Ben's fist to follow and perform a precordial thump, which restarts Naomi's heart. Alive but incapacitated, Ben leaves Naomi to go find Jason. Ben remembers more about his mother and that he fought with her the day she died, not being there when a brain aneurysm killed her. Racked with guilt, he explains to Addison that he likely got into time travel and joined Project Quantum Leap because of his mother's death. Ben finds Jason outside their old building in Oakland. Jason tells him one of their former neighbors are trapped, and despite warnings from Ziggy, Ben enters the building to recover him. Addison directs Ben and actually does a useful hologram thing for once to check the other side of a locked door. Ben rescues Mr. Wheeler, but is knocked out and pinned by a falling beam from the collapsed building. Jason comes in and helps Ben free himself. They both escape the building just as it collapses. With Jason safe, Addison doesn't understand why Ben hasn't leaped, but he realizes he's there to save the marriage and the family. Ben gives Jason some advice that applies to himself, and they go find Naomi in the hospital. Addison gives Ben the happy ending about the family, and then a memory of his mother makes him realize that here in 1989, he'd be able to phone her and talk to her. Addison tells him it's against the rules and she can't let him do that, though seriously, what's she going to do to stop him? Ben can't remember his childhood phone number, so he pleads with Addison to give it to him. She relents and he calls his mother and gets to hear her voice just as he leaps. It's a touching, albeit brief moment, very reminiscent of Sam's phone call with his father in the original series pilot. In 2022, everyone is trying to figure out what they can about the new Leaper. Ian tries to assign him the moniker Leaper X, but Magic refuses to call him that, though Jen does for a while. Now, they could have dragged the identity of this alternate Leaper out across a good chunk of the season, but no. They figure out who it is right away and get an address for him. Turns out the feed from the imaging chamber showed them his real face, even though he was only occupying the body of whoever he leaped into, and they were able to do facial recognition against NSA databases. Leaper X is Richard Martinez, currently a Marine in the U.S. Navy, stationed at Camp Pendleton, which is conveniently just down the street from the top-secret time travel project. Jen and Magic go to Martinez's house and talk to him. He clearly has no idea about anything, which means that at some point in the future he'll be recruited to be a Leaper. Ian discusses the possibility that Magic and Jen going to talk to Martinez as part of a causal loop, whereby doing so they set in motion the events that cause Martinez to become a Leaper in the future, but that's all the ruminations we'll hear about this as Jen shuts him down and tells him to focus on the present. Ian talks to Magic and tells him that his original assumption of Ben using the leaps to gain momentum to go deep into the past might be wrong, and that perhaps Ben is trying to leap into the future. In a heart-to-heart with Jen, Addison reveals that Swiss Cheese Ben is more open with his emotions than before he leaped, making him a better fiancé than the Ben she knew before. The episode ends with Ben leaping into a scene from The Exorcist, clearly sometime before the 1940s, based on the cars, with a super cheesy address changing from 669 to 666, indicating that episode 7 will be a Halloween episode. Ooh! Now my thoughts. This is a pretty high quality episode, and some of the visuals are really well done. Obviously, there was a lot more money for the original pilot than the subsequent episodes, including the pilot that actually aired. The 1989 story is also well written and very similar in tone and plot to many of the series' original episodes. It's strange how it wasn't considered good enough to be the pilot for 2022, when the actual pilot they aired was pretty crappy both in plot and special effects. It was also great to see Jewel Staite again. The team in 2022 keeps referring to the act of leaping as jumping, which, while semantically similar to leap, you need to remember that they use the verb leap in the original series because the phrase quantum leap already existed in popular language and quantum physics, and it's the name of the project. Fun fact, when I was a young teen, I wrote a parody script for a sketch called Quantum Jump, where the Sam character would leap into geriatric people and have to figure out a way to make them physically jump in order for the mission to succeed and Sam to leap out. Yeah, I was a weird kid. So that's my recap and review of this episode. What do you think? It seems obvious from the rejected pilot that NBC Universal started out with good writers and better intentions, so why did they flush that down the toilet to give us the previous 5 episodes? There's a great big comment space below, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, and share, and for those of you who stuck through to the end, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support my channel and want a good read, go to holocenenovel.com and pick yourself up a copy of my first novel in the Holocene trilogy. If you like Star Trek reviews, then go check out UK Dangerman's channel and help him out by subscribing. I'll be joining Richard for more live streams once Season 3 of Picard is complete. Links for everything are in the description below. That's all for now. Take care of each other, and as always, I'll see you in the future. Coming soon to Quantum Leap. You've seen Leaper X. You've seen Leaper XX. But prepare to be blown away by the thrill-seeking extreme sports enthusiast Leaper Triple X.
Welcome to the Xander Show.